Are you ready, Keith?
Aye, RJ.
I can't hear you.
Aye, RJ.
Oh. Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, October the 10th, 2017, and this is the Fourth and Wrong podcast. I'm RJ, and with me as always is Keith. Say hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
Classy. Very classy. That's how we get things started off properly, with a good resounding belch.
Mm-hmm. There's some
so
gas.
Let's roll with it. We got the hello, Keith. We got the first of the podcast, so let's just get into it. Now is the point in the season where I'm willing to also sort of trend towards, like, I don't know what the hell is going on anymore. We've got a couple of teams that are rising to the top, one of which, Philadelphia, is weirdly there, it seems like.
Sure.
And then we've got the couple of teams like Kansas City and Green Bay that we expected to, but everybody else is like smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, like, I mean, even the Jets are 3-2 right now.
Yeah, the AFC East is 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, 2-2, and could easily be 3-2 all the way across the board, with the Bills at the top of the division still, even with a loss this week.
The line starts there.
Yeah, basically for the AFC East, it's more or less week 0 again.
Sure.
Except for the fact that the Bills do have a divisional win over the Jets, so
you got that.
That does count for something.
Right. Unless they beat you later in the season. Then it counts for nothing.
Well, then it's at least a wash, and we didn't take 2 losses. Last week, we started off with the Browns, so we'll flip back and start with the Bills, who will also get to talk about a loss this week.
Hooray!
Because yeah.
I'm not alone!
Yeah. Not since the days of week 2 has Keith been able to share in a loss.
It hurts so good.
All right, so I'll start off with the good before I move into the bad.
Sure.
The defense for the Bills continues to be generally solid. We're still number 1 in the league for fewest points allowed through 5 weeks. That's still something to, hang our hats on. But other than that, this week we missed several starters. Marcel Darius was in the game, got the 1 sack of the game, but didn't start. I don't know what the deal with that is. I don't know if Sean McDermott just is like trying to teach him a lesson or something, because I know that they had some, not scuffles or anything, but Sean McDermott's whole thing throughout the season has been, you got to earn it. And I don't know if he's just trying to seriously teach Darius that lesson, or
like
if he's
really
got
drive that point home.
Yeah, or if he's got some nagging injury that I overlooked, but he didn't start. Ramon Humber still out with that thumb injury from last week. EJ Gaines out at corner with an injury that I didn't look up, because EJ Gaines is not that great of a player, but when you have to start a third stringer instead of a starter, that's not great. For the game, I guess one of the highlights, Micah Hyde got another pick. He now leads the NFL with 4. So,
nice.
Again, the safety's turning out. They've got 6 interceptions between them so far this season in 5 games, so that's pretty good.
No, that's good.
Can't really complain about that.
Didn't both Poyer and Hyde get a pick this game?
They did, yes. And I think the last time Poyer got a pick, which was earlier in the season, they also both got one that game. So, once one of them gets going, the other one usually comes up pretty quick, it seems like.
Yeah.
But Micah Hyde was kind of like dragging before, because it seemed like Jordan Poyer through the first couple of games was the guy making all the big plays and stuff. Mm-hmm. And Micah Hyde coming into the season was the guy coming out of Green Bay. I had heard his name more often before and figured he was going to be the bigger impact player. But Poyer got the faster start off the blocks. And, now Micah has turned around, caught up, and is also making real big plays for the team. So, it's nice to see both of them contributing very strongly through the first 5 weeks.
Sure.
And heading into our bye. The major knock against the defense this week was Tre'Davious White. As usual, rookie cornerback, not doing so hot, got matched up against A.J. Green. did fairly well on the first drive. I think AJ Green got a reception for like 18 or 19 yards, something like that, against Tre'Davious White. But then we ended up shutting down that drive. Next drive, first play, I think it was, just AJ Green ran a go route, and that was it. Like,
Sure.
Tre'Davious never got turned around, never, like, he was backpedaling a little bit, but then AJ Green was like, nah, I'm fast.
Yeah.
And none of the safeties were there to, slide over and help out. So it was just, it was a very Madden play where it was like, okay, yeah, all right, you're past him and there's nobody there for help, which is a thing the Bills haven't done a lot of. Like, it was a 77-yard pass play, and I don't think we've given up one of those yet this season. So it was a real backbreaker early on that kind of just, I mean, when you put 7 points up against the Bills early and they're only allowing 14.8 a game, that's a lot.
Yeah, that kind of raises your odds to have at least a decent scoring game, especially with how they were able to pour it on with AJ. He was obviously the featured receiver, and that was the first receiver to put up even 100 yards, let alone 190, wasn't it?
Demaryius Thomas put up 98 against us.
Okay.
But I think that was the next closest. Kelvin Benjamin only had 77. Yeah, Coleman for the Falcons, who was their leader because Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu got taken out, only had 60-something. And for the Jets, Jermaine Kearse had 60. So, yeah, he was the first person to put up 100 on us all season.
Yeah, I think that definitely speaks wonders for your safeties because they're stopping the play at the second level.
They're stopping the big plays. They're effectively setting an edge.
Right.
We talk about it a lot in the NFL where you have your front four, your front three, and they're the ones who are supposed to, bring a certain amount of rush and a certain amount of pressure. But then if you have the linebackers to set the edge, those speedy running backs, can't really get out and break anything for a long run. So we effectively have had the same thing with our safeties where nobody's been able to put up that kind of yardage. Like, that one play is as much yardage as we've given up to any one receiver in the previous game. 77 yards is a lot for us.
Sure.
For a player, let alone a play. That was a backbreaker early in the game and cost us quite a bit because the offense kind of couldn't do anything. It was a bad day for Tyrod, 20 for 37. That's honestly asking a lot of passes. I think he's already had a game earlier this season where he only threw the ball 20 times.
Right.
And when you're 20 for 37 for 166 yards, that's not good.
Yeah, this seems like a bunch of just dumping it.
Yeah. One touchdown, one interception, pretty pedestrian numbers there, and sacked 6 times. So
Jeez.
It's one of those things where Tyrod's an incredibly mobile quarterback, and I've seen him dip and dive out of a lot of things. So none of these were situations where he got chased down. It was literally just the front of the pocket got pushed back and the sides got pushed in, and he got crushed like a tin can on every single one of these. He did not get chased down. He didn't try and overextend a play. It was, quarterbacks are supposed to have a clock in their head to be able to get rid of it. And what ended up happening was that clock got punched like an alarm clock in a cartoon, and there just wasn't any room for him, and he got destroyed. We're still dealing with not having Cordy Glenn as our starting left tackle, which means our rookie, who was supposed to be playing at right tackle, is playing at left tackle, and our right side is still not pulling their weight, which they haven't the last couple of years, which is why we drafted a right tackle. So,
sure.
It's a compounding problem, much like the defense was compounding on the offensive line in this game. LaShawn McCoy also was not super effective, but again, it's kind of the thing that I've been saying for the last couple of years, and I did just talk about it, but our offensive line is shoddy for large parts. Eric Wood is getting up there in age. He's been our center for over a decade, if I remember properly.
Oh, wow.
Like, Richie Incognito is probably our second best lineman behind Cordy Glenn. But again, Cordy Glenn's had a lot of foot injury problems that have kept him out. And the right side of our line for the last like 46 years has just been a hodgepodge of, failed draft picks and attempted shuffles. Like, we haven't had anybody solid over there. So when half your line just falls apart and you keep trying to run to that side because it's supposedly your strong side where your quarterback's not going to get hit from because he's a right-handed quarterback, it doesn't come together. So, Shady had 19 carries for 63 yards. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
On top of that, the offense had to deal with, injury problems. Jordan Matthews was already out from last game, and he's supposed to be out for upwards of a month still.
Wow.
And then early in the game, Charles Clay, it looked, at first on the play, it looked like to me he turned around funny and like kind of tweaked his knee. But then when you see the end of the play, he just got hit basically in the upper shin, upper calf, like right at the bend point, and apparently suffered a torn meniscus. So he'll be out for several weeks at this
he'll
point.
be out for a bit.
Which is kind of a trend that we're going to see going forward, and is a topic that we'll be talking about later. But damn, were there injuries this week.
Well, at least you don't have to worry about Charles Clay trying to disrupt your bum list anymore.
Yeah, and
at least for
the
a
worst
bit.
part is that Charles Clay was starting to show, like, I think I'm gonna grant him his probation as far as that's concerned. He didn't finish the full game, but he was still definitely on an upwards trend, and now it's like, oh, you're hurt. He gets taken off of the regular bum list and just gets put on the bum knee list, and we'll see how that goes. In his wake, however, Nick O'Leary stepped up. Nick O'Leary is a player that I've thought since we drafted him, I think 2 years ago, has been largely underrated as a tight end. He's one of the few receiving players in the league that plays without gloves still, because he says he never got used to them.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, this is a big dude. Like, think of like a slightly shorter, more barrel-chested Gronkowski, where this dude's going to catch it and turn and fall forward like a fullback. And he was 5 for 6 for 54 yards and Buffalo's leading receiver on the day. Now, again, those 54 yards were out of Tyrod Taylor's 166, so it was like a third of the passing yards. So that's something to be spoken for. It just compounds on Tyrod's bad day, though, to a certain degree.
He seemed to be a reliable target anyways, as far as the percentage numbers goes. 6 targets and 5 catches off those targets. He's obviously either getting open or fighting for good position for the ball.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think he, might have just been overlooked. He had the, sporadic linebacker on him or something, but he was able to find space and some decent yardage here and there. One guy who was able to find decent yardage once, because even a blind duck gets fed every once in a while, was Zay Jones, who managed to, later on in the game, catch a pass for us that did convert a third down and kept a drive alive. But 6 targets and 1 catch for 9 yards. That's...
Now, watching the game, was that more of Tyrod's accuracy issue, or he's still just dropping balls?
Tyrod definitely underthrew him once, but it was on like a screenplay, and it would have hit him in like the shins, which is still something he should have caught. But I mean, primarily my recollection is a lot of throwing at him and a lot of it bouncing off one way or another. Like, most of Zay's stuff is, maybe at most you can chalk a third up to Tyrod. Like, Tyrod's not that inaccurate of a passer.
Right.
He only has had his second interception on the entire season through 5 games, and the first one was a tip drill in the end zone on our first game against the Jets. So, if again, it's not something you can actually discount because it happened, but if you discount that, he's only thrown 1 pick on the season.
I mean, that kind of says something.
Tyrod is well known as a very efficient quarterback, if nothing else.
Sure.
He doesn't have a lot of attempts. What he has attempts on most of the time, he succeeds on. This week, he was, for some reason, made to throw a lot more often. I guess they didn't see out of LaShawn what they wanted. So they went back to him throwing more, which seems completely counterintuitive considering I think it was last week that he only had 20 passing plays.
Right.
Yeah, last week was the week that he was 12 for 20 for 182. This week, he's 20 for 37 for 166.
Yeah, so he almost doubled his attempts.
He almost doubled his attempts for almost 20 yards fewer through an interception, and is missing two of his top receiving targets in Matthews and Clay. So, they kind of put a lot on his shoulders this week, and it just didn't come together.
Sure.
Which also leads us to the beginning of the discussion, which seems to happen every year that Tyrod's been our quarterback, of, is it time to bench him? Should we just bring somebody else in? What's going on now? And I don't know it's obviously largely clickbait just to drive traffic and that kind of thing. But we're already at this point where it's like, well, if Nathan Peterman wanted to start in the next game, he'd have 2 weeks to get ready for it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Tyrod just got sacked 6 times in a game. Nathan Peterman's younger, but he's not as athletic. He's not going to make the wow plays. He might be a little bit more accurate. We don't even know at this point. I think he probably has a better timing locked in with Zay Jones, but outside of that, unless that's going to be the thing that makes our offense, I don't know. I think I as usual think it's way too early.
I think if you're going to do it, it needs to happen now. If I were to voice my opinion, coming from a team that understands what it's like to go through quarterbacks, you either commit to who you want to start past week 5, week 6. That's it. That's all you got. If Tyrod Taylor starts week 7, you keep him all the way through week 7. If you're going to consider benching him, now's kind of that time to do it. You guys aren't in a bad position when it comes to your record. Obviously, you're leading the AFC East, but this kind of offensive efficiency, that will not last. It just won't. Your division's kind of screwy right now, but it's still not an easy division. And you won't be able to outscore the Patriots only putting up 160 yards passing. I don't think it'd be a good idea, especially with the point you brought up with Buffalo's offensive line being a little suspect right now. You need somebody that's a little more athletic in the pocket to really extend plays and get away from the pass rush. But you got to be able to couple that with accuracy downfield.
The Patriots are a weird matchup as far as that goes because they've slipped out of 32 slightly further down the list, but their defense is incredibly suspect, and I don't know that they've played an incredibly talented defense just yet. They played Carolina and put up plenty of points.
Right, but that's really more of a solid defense.
Right, and if Tom Brady knows anything, it's how to dink and dunk against bad corners, so that will definitely be a major problem for us. But no, I agree. If we're going to do it, this is not a terrible time to pull the trigger on it. Mm-hmm. I've said in the past several times, I think Peterman will probably be starting for the Bills at some point.
Sure.
I just, it's one of those things where, yes, I agree. If we're going to switch horses, now would be the time. But Tyrod, it would further the narrative from the preseason that they're setting Tyrod up to fail,
sure.
Which, while that may end up proving to be true, would be really depressing and honestly would be the biggest thing that, hurts me as a Bills fan. Tyrod could be terrible and we could lose 3-4 games in a row, and that would still suck less than turning around and being like, oh, well, we're 3-2, and we lost the 2 games by 6 points and 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Tyrod, you're on the bench. We're starting Peterman. Because
right.
at that point, you might as well trade Tyrod if you're just going to get rid of him one way or another.
Yeah, and I definitely see that. And it's one of those weird situations because I don't think Tyrod Taylor's losing you guys any games. But he's definitely not playing to win, it feels like to me. There's a difference between quarterbacks that play to win the football game and then a quarterback that's playing to not lose the football game. And
yeah,
looking at the numbers and how I've seen Tyrod play before and stuff like that, he's not one to really try to make that big play. He wants to get the ball in the hands of a player without it being a turnover and then something happen with it.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrod is a weirdly athletic field manager.
Sure, and it's unfortunate that he has no help around him.
Field general, rather.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate he doesn't have any help around him to where he can feel comfortable, really extending the field, really stretching the field. You guys have decent possession players. LaShawn McCoy is pretty much automatic as a dual threat running back. Charles Clay was doing good things to not be a bum, but we'll see with the injury. Nick O'Leary showing up and being a reliable target and stuff like that. All that's well and good, but you're not getting any return on your draft pick, that being Zay Jones. And you don't have anybody on that offense that can be trusted as a reliable target and also can really stretch the field and create mismatches. So Tyrod's having to shoulder a lot more responsibility with where he's choosing to put the ball. He has to be smarter with where to put the ball because unlike Cincinnati Bengals, who have A.J. Green, where you can throw him a 50-50 ball and he's going to get up and get it. Or you can line him up with a rookie corner and just put him on a fly route, and he's just going to run straight, and he's going to run straight fast. And all you got to do is put the ball in the right spot. There's no one on Buffalo that can perform like that.
It's almost like the last 2 seasons we had Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins.
You're never going to let that go.
I mean, I'm not so long as this, like, should we bench Tyrod thing keeps up. It's like, no, he's inarguably our best option. Nathan Peterman is a totally unproven rookie who played 4 years of college, because he showed up in the Senior Bowl. Like, he is not some sort of all-star who made it in his first 2 years of college, who has had some sort of crazy impressiveness. He seems to have a good amount of football IQ, but now at this point, he also hasn't gotten a ton of snaps with the ones, so...
They definitely picked him to be more of a project, it seems.
He was a 5th-round draft pick. He was our second 5th-round draft pick.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a project. He had decent numbers when he played at Pittsburgh, but like you said, he was never impressive. He was an efficient passer, but right now you're kind of getting that out of Tyrod. So you can't bench one game general for another. You can't just bench a manager for a manager because that's all he's going to have to be. Because like you said, he hasn't had any snaps with the ones, any meaningful snaps with the ones. If the Bills really do decide to utilize Nathan Peterman, then they would have to simplify the offense. And the only people that can really thrive in a simpler offense, or when the offense is simplified for a rookie, it's always blue chip talent. We're seeing Deshaun Watson do it this year, but you know that they had to simplify that offense for him. He hasn't had enough time in the system to be able to take the full load of the offense, to handle all the audibles at the line and all that fun stuff. Yeah, they are giving him the ability to read coverages and stuff like that, but the offense itself, the playbook, is so much smaller. So I don't see, with Nathan Peterman appearing to be more of a game manager with no significant play time, I just don't see any benefit from swapping a rookie out for somebody that's already been in this offense for a few years.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, not to just harp on it into the ground, but you do kind of need some more dynamic weapons. You need a game breaker in some other aspect that's actually working. Like, you can often say that LaShawn McCoy is a game breaker, but when you've only got one and he's coming out of the backfield, and we've shown this season that that's not working super hot, like, you need someone out to go out there and help. Even Dak Prescott came in and had, incredible wide receiver talent out there to help him out. Dez Bryant is not something to, take lightly. And even when Matt Stafford came in the league, he had, Megatron to go and throw to. So they had a little bit of extra help.
Yeah, and all the blue chip talent you see that takes over offense relatively quickly, it's very rare when a rookie quarterback just starts out the gate as a rookie. There's usually some kind of circumstance that requires them to step up prematurely. But even when they do and they've succeeded, they have talent around them, and that's just something obviously the Bills aren't really blessed with, if you will.
Right. I mean, even Dak had the Romo injury before he got, pressed into service. He just happened to make really well of it. Between Dez and some of the other receivers and having Zeke in the backfield.
Oh yeah, that definitely helped. When you can take part of the offensive burden off of the passing game, and then that coupled with weapons, coupled with a simpler offense to grasp, there's no reason why a rookie with good talent shouldn't be able to step in and run an offense.
Yeah.
Once again, these are things that the Bills do not have going in their favor.
Right. Also, having arguably the best offensive line in the NFL doesn't hurt either.
Also doesn't hurt.
But yeah, I think that's my piece. Now we can move on to your perfect record.
Look, there's no substitute for perfection, and that's what the Browns are providing me currently.
Right.
Do have some actually pretty significant positives from this game. There's Myles Garrett's back.
There's still a franchise in Cleveland.
Shut up. They still allow us to play in the same league as these other professional teams, so that's nice.
They didn't get relocated mid-season.
Right. They didn't suddenly allocate the Browns to the Canadian Football League. But starting off on a positive note, let's do that. Myles Garrett's back from injury. Impact was immediate. Yo, that man,
literally immediate.
Yo, that man looks scary, though.
I was like, oh, that's not a nice person.
No, he looked mean, and obviously the Jets' offensive line just completely letting him go through unblocked on the first play that he was in. Mistake, because that man, I didn't realize how big he was until I know his numbers. He's 280 pounds, but he's swallowed Josh McCown, ate him.
Yeah,
so
that guy's gigantic.
That was really nice.
Why do you think back around the combine and shit, I was talking about there's nobody that big who should move that fast?
Yeah, and his speed and his explosiveness off that line are amazing. And one thing that I saw from Myles Garrett too is his second sack of the day.
Wait, you get a second Myles Garrett? What the fuck?
His second sack of the day was all on second effort. He wasn't necessarily shut down at the line. He had pushed, but they had contained him relatively well. The offensive lineman yielded but did not break. But McCown tried to get shifty and found a gap to get out of the pocket to try to extend the play.
And
then Myles Garrett. So, great. We're not the only one trying to capitalize on a popular franchise without directly naming it.
Our franchises aren't that popular, so we got to capitalize on something.
So, McCown shifted into the gap to extend the play. And Myles Garrett just had a really good second effort and shedded. He never lost his focus on the quarterback. Shed the lineman and got the second sack. He was constantly putting pressure in the pocket. He was constantly in the pocket, pretty much disrupting the pocket. But there was only 2 times where we saw genuine penetration. So the other thing I saw that was really nice on defense was the fact that the Jets' running game was completely non-existent.
That helps.
And they had to rely on Josh McCown. The Jets only attempted 11 carries with their feature back. They only got 34 yards total as a team, which puts Cleveland as one of the top 10 rushing defenses, by the way.
Who do these guys think they are, the Raiders or something?
Because not even Le'Veon Bell could break 50 yards on us, so fuck you. That's from last year. I mean, the breaking 50 yards thing is from this year, or the not breaking 50 yards thing, but last year Le'Veon Bell had a huge breakout game against the Browns like he should have this year, but the Browns were like, nah, son. Or something. Josh McCown appeared to have a relatively consistent game, but the offense didn't really have any big moments that it was just really was able to create a lot of distance from the Browns. There was a reason why that game was only 3-0 by halftime.
Yeah.
No offense was really moving the ball very well. But as far as numbers go, Josh McCown had a relatively decent day as far as percentages. Decent protection for the QBs. Only allowed 1 sack. Only got touched 5 times. But it killed us last week. It killed us the week before. It will continue to kill us. Limiting turnovers is a must. Kaiser had another red zone turnover.
Oh.
Through another red zone pick. It was one of those moments where this is where we can get a foothold in this game, and instead of doing so, threw a pick in the end zone.
Probably one of the biggest momentum killers possible.
Yep. I think Deshaun Kaiser is 3 touchdowns to 11 interceptions this season now. So, needless to say, he was benched at halftime.
Yeah. And not
after that,
not because of a headache that he has, but because of one he's causing.
Exactly. He was, once again, for the 4th game straight, he was under 50% for passing. But then Kevin Hogan was put in the game, and holy fuck, this dude's a quarterback. He had just as many passing yards as Josh McCown had the entire game in the only half that Kevin Hogan played.
Wow.
And he threw for 80%.
Those are you should keep that guy.
And the only pick, he was averaging 10 yards per attempt. He was stretching the field. And the only pick he threw literally bounced off Ricardo Lewis's hands. It was a tip drill.
Okay.
It was slightly, I wouldn't call it a bad pass, but it wasn't necessarily where the ball needed to be. It was slightly behind Ricardo Lewis and a little bit high. So he had to go up and reach behind him, and he got a hand on it and just couldn't seal it down, and it tipped, and the safety got a hold of it.
So basically, is Hogan pulling like the Brian Hoyer in San Francisco move where it's like, what? Why are you good now?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because Hugh Jackson has given him the nod to start this coming week.
Yep. So
we will definitely see. So I think it's good for Deshaun Kaiser. I think it's going to be a mental reset button. A, he's never been benched before. Mm-hmm. B, it gives him time. Because Hogan has been so productive, it gives him time to sit back and start grasping the offense. We've had Kevin Hogan for the past year. He's been in the system for a bit.
I was going to say, you guys drafted him in the 5th round last year, like we drafted Peterman in the 5th round this year.
Right, so this might be one of those things where it's time to turn to this guy. The only thing that it raises a question in my book as far as the quarterback controversy that always happens in Cleveland is, what the hell are we doing with Cody Kessler? Cody Kessler being our 3rd round quarterback draft pick from last year, who, when he was called to start relatively frequently because we had Josh McCown as 2nd string and, of course, Robert Griffin, RG3 got injured first game of the season, and then either the 2nd or the 3rd game of the season, Josh McCown gets injured, so now we need Cody Kessler to start as a rookie from a 3rd round pick to a starter for the Cleveland Browns. He wasn't terrible. He was consistent. He protected the ball well. A lot of people, the big criticism with him was he kind of had like a noodle arm.
Well, it also looks like he had a bunch of fumbles.
Yeah, he couldn't really hold on to the ball when he got hit or pressured, but he was 6 touchdowns on 2 interceptions, and he was over 60% passing. He had a 92 passer rating for last season. He wasn't terrible. He just couldn't stretch the field. He was a game manager, one of those people we've been talking about today.
Apparently, just you shackle him to the offensive line so he can't run, because apparently only one of his fumbles came on a passing attempt. The other 3 came on his 11 rushing attempts.
Yeah.
Don't let him leave the pocket. Just be like, just take the sack, dude.
Yeah, just take it, man. Take the L. Kevin Hogan actually has legs. He's athletic. Kevin Hogan had to start briefly for Cleveland last year when Cody Kessler got injured, and he had more rushing yards than he did passing yards, which was interesting. So I thought after last year, Kevin Hogan was a bust, even though he was a late round pick and nobody really expects him to thrive without some serious grooming.
Yeah, 4 games played, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Not great.
Yeah, but this year, during preseason, he looked great, and during the short time he's played with the ones, he's looked solid. He looks like he knows what he's doing, and that's all I fucking ask for. Because it was very difficult to watch Deshaun Kaiser yesterday, because all of the things we've been talking about, or not yesterday, Sunday, because all the things we've been talking about Deshaun Kaiser over the past few weeks, where he holds onto the ball, too long, he's staring down his receivers. Everything over every week has been getting more and more and more and more magnified to the point where something's got to give, and finally it did. And depending on how Kevin Hogan plays this weekend, I think that'll seriously determine whether or not Kaiser sees the field until next year. I would say if we if we judge the football game on just the second half played, Cleveland was the better team. The problem is you got to play an entire game of football.
Yep, you got to play.
Cleveland
60
has a really right. You got to play 60 instead of 30. Cleveland has a really bad habit of starting slow this year, which is killing us. There were opportunities for us to win this game. Zane Gonzalez missed 2 fucking field goals.
That doesn't help.
We need to have a talk about him at some point. Because this is the second or third game this year where a field goal would have kept us either tied or win the game, and he's missed, and it's super frustrating. Jason McCourty, who pretty much is filling that veteran role of Joe Hayden, since Joe Hayden is now playing with Steelers, he got himself an interception where he straight up jumped the route, no tip drill, no nothing. It was just a good heads-up football play. Dave Njoku, Kevin Hogan seems to have a better chemistry with the tight ends, and when we have a tight end like Dave Njoku, who is athletic as him, he needs to get his hands on the ball. And the one time he got his hands on the ball, well, he was targeted 3 times and caught the ball 3 times, which is a good thing. But he got to showcase his athleticism with his touchdown grab, where he, pretty much pulled a forward jumping Odell and snatched the ball one hand by the crown of the football and tucked it into his body. There was no shift, no nothing. He had control of the ball as soon as he laid a finger on it. And it was a very athletic catch. Ricardo Lewis is really starting to show up as...
Sounds like he ain't no Joku.
He ain't no Joku. Ricardo... I hate your jokes. I don't know why I repeat them. Like, I feel like I need to hype man your jokes when they're just that bad. But... this one time where I've done it, I've noticed that I keep doing it, and I'm going to stop because now I hate myself. And I hate you for saying them.
You're welcome.
But Ricardo Lewis, I think, is really playing up the role of taking over as our primary wide receiver. Kenny Britt didn't even have a target this game, let alone a reception.
Huh.
So I'm pretty much done with him. I'm washing my hands of him.
I was going to say,
Bryce Treggs.
Maybe Hogan knows something that we don't. He's like, yo, that guy can't catch.
Right. Bryce Treggs, we picked him up off a practice squad, used to play for the Eagles. He had a breakout game when he played for the Eagles. Dude has some physical attributes that are really, really impressive. He was targeted a fair amount. He only had 2 receptions, but not a lot of that was his fault. There was just a lot of bad passes when your quarterback's throwing 40%. So I'm excited to see him a little more involved in the offense. Rushing game was okay. Nothing super impressive, about what you'd expect. But total as a team, ran for 140 yards and passed for almost 300 yards offense. The football that was being played was better on the Cleveland side. The problem is our inability to execute either in scoring range or the red zone, which has been the story of my fucking life for the past 5 weeks. I think what we're doing with Kevin Hogan's a good thing. I think we need to keep plugging away with whatever help we can get as far as the receivers go, and we got to figure out a way to get our rushing game more involved. Right now, especially after this week, I have newfound confidence in our defense. We just need to put all the pieces together, and I hope to God that we get some kind of win before week 16 this year.
I think you have a chance.
No, totally. I still think wholeheartedly the Jets are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah. When's your bye week?
It is coming up shortly, actually.
Okay. Well, it could be somewhere around there, or it could be your second shot against the Bengals, because if you can stand up defensively against them at all.
Yeah. Our bye week is week 9. So, but the bye week is before we play Cincinnati again. So we're playing we play Houston, Tennessee, and Minnesota next. Houston, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm scared.
Well, they don't have J.J. Watt anymore, which is...
They don't have J.J. Watt anymore, so that kind of helps.
I was going to say, are we wrapped on the Browns?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, well, then that's actually a perfect transition of... Man, there were a lot of injuries this week, like a lot.
Holy shit.
And to big name people. I mean, yeah, you're playing the Texans soon, but they don't have J.J. Watt for the season. He's done.
Yep.
Tibula plateau fracture.
He broke his leg. He broke his leg. He broke his leg.
He's got an archipelago of bones now. I don't know what those words mean. I meant to look them up, but it sounds like it sucks, so I don't know if I really want to do that. So I'll just
he broke his leg. There's a broken piece of bone in his leg.
Yeah, that's bad. You need that to be in one piece.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what? By next season, like J.J. Watt is just fully half cyborg.
He will be by the time his end of his career.
Like he comes out and J.J. Watt is the first fully mechanized player for the NFL.
But he used to be a human, and you can't discriminate on trans biology people.
Is that trans metal people?
Trans metal, trans cyborg. Yeah, and they lost Whitney Merciless for the season, so that's nice.
Yeah, 2 guys out. He tore a pectoral muscle. That's bad. Let's just run down the rest of this big list of like, oh my god, these are bad.
We talked about Charles Clay.
Charles Clay tore meniscus out several weeks. Let's talk about the Giants and how it's a bad time to be a wide receiver.
So if you want to
go on,
if you want to be a wide receiver, and like say you're a rookie wide receiver, or you're coming out of college and you're entering the draft, the moment the Giants call you and go, hey,
hang up the phone.
We want to draft you.
Hang up the phone.
Yeah, we want to draft you. You hang up the phone as quickly as humanly possible.
Who dis? New phone. Sorry.
I don't know this Giants person.
Yeah.
What'd you say your first name was? New York?
No, sorry. Wrong number. Click.
Yeah. It's not. I don't know if the Giants have an offense anymore. Like, that was it.
Odell Beckham Jr., fractured ankle, undergoing surgery, out for the season. Brandon Marshall, ankle, undergoing surgery, out for the season. Dwayne Harris, fractured foot, out for the season. That's bad. They ended that game with 1 wide receiver.
Sterling Shepard.
Because they had another guy get injured. He's just not out for the season. So
right. Yeah, that was a rough game for the Giants, and unfortunately for Odell, this is a contract year for Odell.
Yep.
And I think Odell did a very good job at proving his worth by literally having.
Did they not pick up his 5th-year option?
No, they haven't picked up his option yet.
Okay. I think they might have had to by now.
But he's probably in a position where he would want to renegotiate that contract. Like fuck a 5th-year option because prior to this injury.
I don't know that he gets that kind of leverage if they just pick it up unless they want to lock him up long term.
No, he can absolutely do that. It's called restructuring your contract.
Well, sure. But that would usually come around with an extension because they're not going to restructure it for 1 year unless he's just going to choose to sit instead.
I think Odell's put himself in a good position up to this point where he can ask for a restructure to get off his rookie contract, and they would be well enticed to listen until this injury.
Because now he's got the Sammy Watkins, you've got foot or leg problems, and you're a speedy wide receiver, and you'll never be the same because that's the stigma.
Yep. And Odell did a very good job this season, after missing the beginning of the season, by really establishing why the Giants should pay him money, like big money, not rookie money. Because the moment he stepped back out in the field, they lost literally
3 more games.
But he was all of their production.
Sure.
The Giants need Odell, and they put themselves in a position where they need Odell. And then Odell was put in a position to where he could have probably walked in that front office and said, fuck this rookie contract, you're going to pay me big money, and they would have at least listened to him.
Yeah. That or they need to turn around and just accept the tank at this point and probably pick up a wide receiver in next year's draft.
Yeah.
Because, let's be real. Eli's not a spring chicken anymore. He won those 2 Super Bowls early in his career. I was still in high school when he won one of those Super Bowls.
And when he won those Super Bowls, he still wasn't great. Like, he's a good quarterback, but he had some of the best defenses in the NFL. Every time the Giants have been one of the more successful teams in the NFL, it usually stems off their defense. Mm-hmm. He's just a core component to their offense because he was normally consistent and productive, but he's not a lights out quarterback by any fucking means.
No, he's that Joe Flacco tier of like better than consistent but worse than elite.
Right. So I'm in agreement with you. The Giants just pretty much need to accept the hand that's been given to them and go 0-7, go 0-16.
If they could find a way to go 0-17, that'd probably be better for them and really lock up that number 1 pick.
Do you have any of the Giants draft picks?
No. We got one from the Eagles, we got one from the Chargers, we've got one from Kansas City.
So you can say that sincerely.
Yeah, no, I mean, at this point, if you're 0-5 and you've lost, like, literally... So, the Bills were in a situation last year, I'm sure I've brought this up at this point, where we lost our, top 3 wide receivers for a stretch of time. We didn't lose them for the season, week 5. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a much bigger deal. They've got to go out there and either pull basically everybody off of their practice squad or like go running through the streets of New York, throwing things at people and seeing how they react.
They could always call Josh Gordon and see if he can get reinstated.
Yeah, that could happen. Probably won't, but
no, probably, yeah. I would almost say definitely won't.
A couple more big injuries. Apparently, real bad week to be a wide receiver. Chris Connolly, Kansas City, ruptured Achilles, also out for the season. I don't know how much that's going to affect them. I don't know what his numbers are so far, but pairing that with Travis Kelce having a concussion, the concussion protocol generally seems to go one of two ways, where you're basically out of it by the next game, or you're out of it for more than a week.
Yeah, the Browns have lost Jamie Collins for 2 games now because he's still in concussion protocol.
Yeah. So,
he's questionable this week. This will be his 3rd week.
Getting hit in the head's real bad.
Yeah, no, real bad.
And then, so we'll see if that threatens the other side of a perfect record.
Sure.
But
yeah, Chris Connolly was one of their intermittent, consistent targets.
Yeah, it's definitely just going to keep heaping pressure on Kareem Hunt at this point.
Yeah, and they have plenty of receivers that could step up and fill that role. I mean, obviously their number 1 is Tyreek Hill, and then Travis Kelce, and then Kareem Hunt out the backfield. I don't think it'll affect them too much. The big thing would be how fast they get Kelce back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm mostly curious about the Kelce situation because he is part of their new weird offense where they're doing all sorts of random stuff. And also he's just, a big consistent target for Alex Smith to throw to.
Sure.
And then the last one that I've got on here is Adam Jones. I mainly have him on here. He had a back injury. He was in and out of the game several times. And I only really have him on here because, A, he's a pretty impactful cornerback, and I think still part of their special teams as a returner. And he got injured, during the game against the Bills. Andy Dalton also at one point went and screwed up his ankle, and looked like he was going to have a bit more of a problem playing on it than he did, and I got excited about that, but then he didn't, so I got less excited about it.
Sure.
Also, the Bengals made it through a game against the Bills without losing their top wide receiver, so,
Hey, they broke it. They broke the hex.
They broke the breaking streak.
Yep. The only thing I can say about the Adam Jones thing is, although I wish no injury upon people, because these are people and I enjoy watching football, but I'm not a Adam Jones fan by any means, not just because he plays for the Bengals, but because he's probably one of the biggest shit talkers in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he's not a lockdown corner.
No. And yeah, he's got a long history of being an agitator.
Yeah, I remember when Cleveland played the Bengals last year for the first time, and it was when Terrell Pryor really broke out as our number 1 receiver, and Adam Jones released the video after the game, after the game where he pretty much quote unquote shut down Terrell Pryor and compared him to a garbage can. You remember that video?
I don't, but
where the reporters were just like, "What's your opinion on Terrell Pryor?" And he just kept looking back, going, "Garbage." And he grabbed, like, one of his teammates grabbed the garbage can, and it was a big thing. Like, they had fun with it. But Terrell Pryor's response to that was, I mean, he's right. I played like shit that game. And I was like, there you go. Take the high road. And then you also left because now I hate you, so that's fine.
So, some big injuries that are definitely going to affect some teams in a fairly major way, and also like kind of affect the league in general.
Oh, sure.
You know, it's another season where Houston loses J.J. Watt, and they're trying to turn around and get their rookie quarterback to do some stuff. That doesn't help. Merciless also doesn't help with that. And yeah, the Giants, I don't know. I'm less worried about the Giants mainly because they were already screwed. So
sure. Which was funny. The projection of the Giants at the beginning of the season and the projection now are literally polar opposites. A lot of people had them as like the one to dethrone the Cowboys in the NFC East.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's not. That's what's going. It's not.
I guess before we move on to other actual game talk, we had some trade news today. We'll still call it today.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Every day is Tuesday when we're reporting in podcasts.
Yeah, we totally didn't have to record this in 2 chunks. That definitely didn't happen. We're definitely not actually recording this on Wednesday now.
Tell you what, if we get merch at some point and somebody's listening to our back library, if they can find your edit where you splice both parts together, we'll give them a t-shirt.
No, we're just going to make calendars.
Like sexy calendars?
Oh, whatever.
I mean, I gotta lose some weight.
No, I was thinking like offensive linemen of the NFL. But, you know, the dates are accurate, but every day is Tuesday.
We would have to call Big Vince.
Yeah.
He did ESPN's body issue. I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem with it.
Vince, I need some help.
Yeah. You already posed naked for a one media outlet once. You can do it again.
Yeah. What the fuck was that noise?
My cat is attacking my leg while I'm trying to do this.
Okay, so yeah, we had some trade news. Adrian Peterson sent to the Cardinals. Adrian, I'm super not happy with playing with the Saints, is no longer a Saint and is now taking his 32-year-old ass to the already oldest team in the league. And he got traded for a conditional late-round pick, which sounds roughly like what we traded Marshawn for, but I don't think AP is going to turn around in beast mode and like take him to 2 Super Bowls all of a sudden.
No, but I think it is possible for the Cardinals to get more production out of Adrian Peterson.
Well, sure. My understanding is they're currently like the worst rushing offense in the league, so it's kind of...
Well, that's kind of what happens when you lose David Johnson.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
And your only savior is Chris Johnson, who's not nearly as good.
I mean, that's not so bad. I mean, he put up 2,000 yards that one season like a decade ago.
He has a great nickname, though.
Yeah. It only takes one. I mean, it's not quite as good as Chris Hogan's 7-Eleven, but...
Because he's always open.
That man's always open. Yeah, I mean, I figured I'd just throw that out there right now. I don't know. Aren't the Cardinals just pretty middling like most other teams? Because apparently everybody is 3-2 this season somehow.
They're actually 2-3.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's basically still at 500. So, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But we knew that was an ongoing saga of Adrian Peterson being very unhappy with how him being used, or with how he was being used, and on top of that, you know, teammates and stuff basically being like, "Hey, shut up! You're not the guy. Deal with not being the guy."
I think not even giving him the opportunity to try to be the guy when the last time he came off of a season-ending leg injury, he
led the league
had
in
an
rushing.
MVP. He had an MVP caliber campaign.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're 32 or not. I would like to at least see as whether or not the dude still has it.
Yeah.
Before you make that judgment call, considering this guy won the MVP as a running back.
there might have been more to it of just locker room issues or him not learning the playbook or something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I remember at the beginning of the season, it was like, holy shit, Adrian Peterson's going to the Saints. This is going to be crazy. Like, Drew Brees is going to have somebody in the backfield to, like, blow stuff up for it. And then it just, like, died on the vine pretty much.
Right. Well, and that's just not the Saints' offense. You know, AP is not a good receiving back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a bad one, but he's not a dual threat, and that is a very pass-happy team. When you have a quarterback like Drew Brees, why not? But I figured, like you, it would incorporate some, I don't know, variety into the Saints, and they're pretty much just doing their same old shit, and that is not a good environment for such a explosive power back like Adrian Peterson, who we don't even know whether or not he is still an explosive power back or not, because we haven't seen him play much.
And you know what? That's probably exactly the thing is he just doesn't fit the system as well as they need him to. And he wasn't ready to take more of a step back. So the Thursday night game, New England versus Tampa Bay in what was supposed to be the game that helped secure first place for me in the AFC East. And then didn't happen.
Tampa Bay really should have won that game.
They really should have won that game. Tom Brady, accurate but human. He threw, 30 for 40, so 75%. Not bad numbers, but 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. For most people, that's,
that's pedestrian.
That's a slightly above average game on yardage, but everything on that is, Yeah.
And is 300 yards in the NFL even slightly above average anymore?
I would say that the average is probably closer to like 250, 260 in most of the games that we're seeing this season.
Sure, but I wouldn't call... I remember an era, which is a lie because I've only known 2 eras of football, but I remember when 300 yards used to be impressive. Now we're just kind of meh.
Yeah.
So
he put up like 450 one game. So
yeah, I will yield to you that although slightly above average, it's still a pedestrian number.
Oh yeah, especially for the likes of the greatest of all time Madden cover fucking Tom Brady. So
sure, if anything, if you look at his performance across those attempts and those yardage, he still only got a 34 QBR. So
yeah, and really the big story of the game is not Tom Brady or the Patriots at all. It's Tampa Bay and missing 3 field goals.
3 field goals. I remember texting you and I asked you if you had been seeing all these field goals, and you're like, "No, I think they've missed 2." And I was like, "Try 3." Dude.
Yeah, you asked me how many had they missed, and I was like, at least 2." And your response was 3. They missed 3.
How? And not even. Okay.
Well, I can tell you how. He kicked the ball and it didn't go through the uprights.
Sure, but one of them was a fucking chip shot, like literally a borderline chip shot. Yeah. I hope Nick Folk got fired pretty much immediately as they were walking through the locker room. Well, the coach just walked up to him and said, "Hey, you're fired."
He didn't get fired. They actually placed him on injured reserve, which I think means they actually can't fire him at this point because apparently he had
injured reserve. Yeah,
he had tendinitis in his plant leg, which normally, I would think if you miss 3 field goals, you have worse than tendinitis in your plant leg. You've more got an ambulatory problem where you don't have a foot on your kicking leg anymore. But that's just me.
Did he have that injury prior to that game?
I think. That's not normally something that just crops up all of a sudden, but they did put him on injured reserve on Monday, and they played on Thursday. So, you had basically most of a week there to figure that out one way or another. So it might have been something that was nagging him previously that flared up. But, again, when it's, I don't know. I've never kicked in the NFL, so I can't say how much that really affects you.
I could say that the plant leg is pretty significant for kicking and such.
It is one of the 2 legs that you use, so...
Losing one is pretty important.
It is half of your leg.
Now, if he had a injury in his plant leg and his kicking leg,
well, yeah, that'd probably be pretty bad.
Terrible. So let's talk briefly about drugs.
Okay.
And why you probably shouldn't do them at work on video and send that video to a stripper.
Oh, is that where we're going with this? Okay. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I sent you this story. You might have seen it prior to me sending it to you, but oh my God, the things you find on Mia Khalifa's Twitter. Don't ask me why I was there.
Trust me, I've been following this story pretty much as soon as it broke. Remember, all I do besides work is watch and listen to sports news.
Also, the reason I was there was because I was following the Gilbert Arenas story of him calling her out for trying to slide into his DMs. I have no reason to look at Twitter.
Yeah.
Like regardless of whose Twitter it is, at this point in my life, I have no reason to look at it.
Yep. So by the time people hear this,
by the way, follow us on Twitter.
Sports, if you're into sports news and commentary, you've heard this story before. Pretty much the Dolphins offensive lineman coach was exposed by a stripper that he frequents.
Which is weird because normally the exposing happens by the other party.
By the stripper.
Yeah.
Right. So the stripper was exposing something differently this time. Where he was on video with a rolled up $20 bill and snorting some kind of white powdery substance that may or may not be illicit.
It wasn't kind of white. It was definitely white lines.
It was definitely white. It's definitely white lines. And he referred to it as blow on the video.
Did he?
And yes.
Okay.
And he commented on how, talking to the stripper, commented on how he loves and misses getting really high with her. Mm-hmm. Hey, baby, do you remember when we used to get high? That was great times. Stuff like that.
Yep.
So, although I will not put a definite on it until I read a definite, because slander laws are a thing, I could venture to say...
I'm sorry, are you really worried about us getting slapped with some sort of defamation lawsuit with the two people that listen to this by the time this gets shaken all the way out? I mean, he already resigned over it. I think we're pretty in the clear.
Sure, but I'm not going to refer to it as anything because I could also be wrong about the substance. Because in my professional opinion, and by professional I mean strictly amateur...
Well, also you're
that powder.
Also you're
that
an
powder
EMT,
did not
so.
seem to be. Yeah, that powder did not seem fine enough to be certain substances such as cocaine or something.
Yeah, it could have been crushed up pills or something.
I would lean more towards a crushed up pill or something, especially with how he was fighting it in his sinuses and whatnot.
Also, there was a bunch of extra residue on the table, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was funny for me watching it the first time because he refers to her as baby, and I was like, I can't believe that his wife really just put him on blast like this. And then you were like, no, it's a stripper, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I really, really wish that he didn't have enough time to resign because I would have wanted to be the fly on the wall during the conversation between the GM and this O-line coach.
Yeah.
When it came to his termination, because I assume in a professional environment it would have been something along the lines of, hey, you can't do that, you're fired. But I would hope it would have been something more exciting so we could hear about it later. But unfortunately, he was given the time to resign.
I'd be willing to bet the conversation went something along the lines of, hey, idiot, you're not supposed to record that when you do that. Yeah. Idiot.
And I want to say, I don't know if he was doing it at work, but it was before a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. What do you think about me doing this right before I go into a meeting? Crazy, right? I'm like, that's not the crazy part. You put it on film, idiot.
Yeah, I have some advice.
Yeah, no, that's not the crazy part. Also, you were apparently sober before starting this video because now you're high. So there's sort of a disconnect there, idiot.
Right. If I were to pass any advice, the most basic advice I can make is if you are going to perform illicit activities or do illicit drugs, don't fucking record it. I don't understand. And evidently from Scuttlebutt, the reason why the stripper put him on blast was pretty much because he stopped cutting checks.
Oh. that or if you're gonna do drugs, be a rapper in your home in a legal state and not in a tour bus.
Yeah, also not good. Looking at you, Nelly.
Nelly. And who was it when we were back in college? Was that Wiz?
That was Wiz, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rip rappers coming to North Carolina.
Yeah, well, don't post videos of you doing drugs in your tour bus. Like,
yeah.
they know where you are.
That's pretty much what I was saying is,
It's the tour bus that says Wiz Khalifa on the side of it.
be in a location that you own that can't get pulled over.
Right. Or well, I would say or get raided, but your house could get raided.
If you're high enough to think that the police are pulling you over in your house, you probably need some help anyways. I'm already pulled over, man. I'm literally in my driveway. I can't pull over anymore.
Yeah, so that was good. That was fun. It's pretty much at this point most of it is resolved. It's mostly just trying to find the rest of the details of what the hell happened, but it gave me a chuckle.
Yeah, I ran into that and I was like, oh.
Yep. So some key games. Let's get back on more of a
key games.
Like a key.
Get it?
Like drugs.
Like a key bump.
Oh, I thought you meant like key like a kilo. Both are applicable.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're on the right track.
Yes. You would say that we steered them back onto the correct rails.
So I'm going to continue steering back onto the rails. Let's talk about football, but more in a football-y manner.
Let's not get off track, Marks.
Jesus fucking Christ, RJ. Let me gloat about Kansas City. Will you shut the fuck up?
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I'm out of bad jokes.
So, Kansas City, another dominant performance on offense. Their defense is starting to worry me, but they're still undefeated, so I'm still going to gloat about it regardless because you're still super wrong about Oakland.
That's fine. I admitted I was wrong about Oakland at least last week. I think it was week 3.
Yeah.
So, the Raiders are not producing the way that they were. Derek Carr got injured. Marshawn is either not being utilized enough or, doesn't quite have it anymore. And, he would be on his 9th year in the league at this point had he not taken a year off. And most running backs are lucky to make it past 7 a lot of times. So
yeah, totally.
I'm not surprised. It's not really something I don't feel bad about it. Again, my draft pick is plummeting, but other than that,
yeah. Just very quickly. Obviously, their defense wasn't super crazy because Houston was able to score a lot. But good production on offense. Travis Kelce led the game in receiving on both sides of the ball.
And led the game in head injuries.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
Hopefully he comes back quickly because he's obviously a key component of that offense. Kareem Hunt they're starting to see the production that they expected out of him. Those big break flash in the pan games are starting to go away, but he still was relatively productive on both sides of the ball. Just less so during this game. He wasn't really targeted a lot in the receiving game.
Okay, here's a quick question. We're in week 5. Does Kareem Hunt hit a rookie wall?
No. Maybe.
Because I don't feel like Zeke really hit a wall last year, but normally it is around that 10 or 12 game mark with about a quarter of the season left to go that you see fall off in a lot of rookies.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference we saw with Kareem Hunt this game versus previous is he never really had a really big breakout play on the rushing end or the receiving end of the ball. So his numbers look a little more normal, but he still was able to produce. I would say he produced about an average NFL running back would. So I would call it less of a rookie wall and more of him coming down off of some really explosive playmaking.
Yeah, but again,
just having an average game.
They were playing against Houston, which for at least part of that game had J.J. Watt and Merciless in.
Yeah, and Houston's defense is not. Definitely can't ever rule them out. Even without J.J. Watt, they're still an effective unit.
Yeah, and his all-purpose yards weren't that great, but he still broke 100 yards rushing. So that's something.
Yeah, they were getting enough. I mean, the thing that still kills me about Kansas City is Alex Smith's ability to just throw the ball around the field. Mm-hmm. He got everybody involved in this game.
Oh yeah,
but. Besides that, I just wanted to bring it up just so I have more opportunities to gloat.
Yeah, I mean,
because until they lose, I'm going to keep doing it.
That's fine. 10 different people with a catch, 11 people with a target. Like that's pretty much everywhere.
So I have an interesting question for you.
Okay, I have a really bad answer probably.
Are the Philadelphia Eagles legit?
You know, I started off this podcast, which has totally only been recorded in one shot today, and definitely not in 2 sections. Dude, I don't know. It's another one of those things where I haven't been paying super close attention, but they're 4-1. Like, let me pull their stuff up as I just kind of vamp for a second here. I mean, maybe Carson Wentz had an incredible showing at the beginning of last year too, and then they kind of fell apart. I mean, they've played the Redskins, not super impressive. Lost to the Chiefs, beat the Giants, beat the Chargers, beat the Cardinals. The Giants, they won by 3. The Chargers, they won by 2. The Cardinals, they beat the hell out of this week. So
Sure.
They're winning divisional games. They might be the best team in their division, but I think we'll see next week. I will give them a tentative yes, but they have to play the Panthers next week, and then they have 2 weeks, which are back to the Redskins, which is actually at home this time, so that should probably be a win again. Against the 49ers, who, at least against the Rams, showed that they could put up some points, but also aren't crazy impressive. And then they play the Broncos. So really, it's still going to be a little while before I can give them a solid yes or no.
So, looking at the schedule, like you have it in front of you, would you be comfortable saying that maybe Carolina and Seattle and maybe Denver would be really the big games that they would have to win to really prove something?
I think the Cowboys are not an insignificant game, and they have to play them twice as a divisional opponent. They haven't played them once yet this season, and I think at Los Angeles versus the Rams is going to be a thing. So I would say Broncos, both Cowboys games, and the Rams. I wouldn't even say necessarily the Seahawks, like. Their passing game has come alive, but they've still got LeGarrette Blount, and he's showing up doing his mini beast mode thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't count the Raiders as an important game. I obviously wouldn't count the Giants as an important game.
Sure.
The Bears might be a trap game, but
if they can turn that offensive around, yeah.
I'm gonna say they lost to the undefeated Chiefs. Had they beat them and they were 5-0 and the Chiefs were 4-1, then I'd probably be singing a different tune. They did keep that game within a touchdown at Arrowhead, so I've got to give them credit for that. But yeah, I think next week versus the Panthers, it seems like a lot of the tests to say, are they really a team? Are they really that impressive? Actually come later on in the season, and they don't really have a great sounding board up until that point.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with you. I think the Eagles are definitely benefited by an easier schedule than people projected. Obviously, we expected Washington to be a solid team in their division. A lot of people expected New York to be a lot better than they are now.
Right.
Nobody expected Kansas City to be playing lights out like they have been. Obviously, you could always expect more production out of Arizona. Los Angeles would probably be one of those games where I think they probably should have won that game by more. But now that we have a few weeks of perspective, I think they've been kind of graced with a relatively easier schedule.
I was going to say, out of the 4 teams that they've beaten, 2 of the teams have yet to win a game.
Sure. So I think they've definitely benefited from a easier schedule than people once perceived.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if they can keep it going. Especially Carolina's playing well right now. San Francisco, actually, that could be one of those trap games for them because no, they're not winning football games, but they're impressing people. They're moving the ball well.
Right.
And so the Eagles have a really bad habit over the past few seasons of finding the one team they shouldn't lose to and then losing to them.
Yeah. And the matchup predictor at this point has the Eagles as about a 90% favorite. So,
yeah. So if there is one game that they should win that they might lose, it's the San Francisco game.
And
but the rest
They're going to play in Carolina next week. If they win in Carolina next week, I will give them the benefit of the doubt until, they hit the Broncos and the Cowboys. Then I will say, yes, they are something to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think the week of rest before they play the Cowboys is good for them, probably after coming off of Denver, because Denver's defense is going to swallow them, just like they do everyone else.
Well, I mean, we beat them.
True. But how much did you score on them?
20-something? Yeah, 26-16. We put some points up on them.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's respectable.
We put the second most points up on them out of anyone. Actually, no, we put the most points up against them because I'm reading these scores backwards. The Chargers put up 21, the Cowboys put up 17, and the Raiders put up 10. We put up 26, and they're one loss this season. So, one
thing we can kind of move on with by looking at the Eagles' schedule is the fact that we're not counting the Oakland game as one of those games that it's really not one of those games where that would be a true test for their team, because the Raiders are kind of collapsing around themselves right now.
Yeah, it's also, sorry, before we keep going with that, it's going to be one of those situations where if Derek Carr is back in time for that and they have kept themselves in the running, it's a Christmas Day game. With one game left in the season afterwards. So
sure.
That's going to have some additional impact, but we have no way of predicting where they're going to be at that point. So at this point, I'm discounting it.
Yeah, and with that preface, at this point, I would agree with you that we should still discount it. EJ Manuel not doing great for Oakland, which I guess is to be expected.
I expected it.
Yep. Marshawn Lynch is still not not being utilized enough, and although the short times he is being utilized, he's not being super productive.
I expected that less.
Derek Carr is obviously the lifeblood of that offense.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, him, Crabtree, and Amari Cooper are, a large part of that super dynamic offense.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because I really liked to watch Oakland play last year, and I think they got screwed in the playoffs with Derek Carr going out, but
doesn't help.
I can only be so sad though because it made me right, but at the same time, it's kind of affecting the way I feel like it's kind of affecting the way the AFC is going to play out.
What a self-centered asshole kind of opinion.
But Marquette King's still doing cool stuff with his legs, so that's nice.
There was a point in time where I think I halfway became an Oakland Raiders fan at the end of last season, just because they were kind of that explosive, do silly shit team on the West Coast, so they were largely disconnected from me.
Sure.
So they were another team that just kind of became fun to watch, and this was again another one of those things that we started off this season going nuts about that is just totally wrong at this point. It's fourth and wrong, actually. Was, Marshawn coming back and was going to be this, huge factor. And, here comes Derek Carr, and they're going to just sling it all over the place, and they're going to put up 1 billion points, and they're going to be unstoppable. And they kind of looked like that for the first, 2 games. And that's as many as they've won up to this point.
Yeah, it was. I'd garnished a certain amount of enjoyment watching Oakland last year with this new certain dynamic they found on offense. Are we done with the Raiders?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good on the Raiders. I don't really have that much more to say about them.
Okay. So we're gonna bring it back local. Well, at least local for me, because I'm from North Carolina. So my boy Mitch Trubisky finally got his start in the NFL, and he was kind of he was okay, I guess.
He was serviceable right up until the end.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, serviceable is a good word. They almost won that game, so that's cool. If you look at his numbers on paper, they don't look great. In fact, they look quite bad. But I can say with 100% certainty that when your receivers are as bad as the Chicago Bears receivers are when it comes to being able to not drop balls, he didn't have a lot of help out there.
He also, unfortunately, gets compared to a quarterback who got put in the second half and had, a pretty decent game for the entire half that he was in, much like your Kevin Hogan.
Yeah, I think this week judging him is a little unfair. Let's give him a good solid week and a good solid second week in the system.
Are you saying that this 1 week shouldn't have that much bearing on how we feel about him?
Man, I would have said it, but not stupid.
Well, fine then.
But but I distinctly remember, and I wrote it down, that the first thing that came to mind when I finished watching the game and then saw the box scores, the stats don't do him any favors, but neither were his receivers. So I'm excited to see him play next week because I am a UNC fan when it comes to college football, and he is the first possible full-time starting quarterback to ever be drafted out of UNC. The only other active UNC quarterback right now is TJ Yates. So there's not a big legacy to live up to, but it's cool to see the quarterback position being represented as far as UNC players go.
One could argue that that's a legacy to live down to, considering Yates was sitting at third. Is he injured now? He's on the Bills, and we're talking about a quarterback controversy, and you'll notice his name didn't come up.
Yeah.
So kind of not a lot to brag about there. I mean, he looked halfway decent in the preseason, playing against other teams' third stringers.
Right, and that's the biggest thing you got to be careful when it comes to quarterbacks like that, is watching them play in the preseason. It's like, man, they look so good, but then it's like, man, they look so good against people that probably won't be part of an NFL roster by the time the regular season starts.
Yeah, if you say anybody is like, man, he looks so good after the first 15 minutes of a preseason game, you should, get your head looked at, because you don't know what you're talking about.
So pretty much the last game I really want to touch on that was significant, probably mostly to me, but I think represents... Wait, did we already talk about the Steelers?
No.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Steelers for a second.
Okay, let me start off talking about the Steelers by reminding you of something you wanted to talk about last week, because it's probably still slightly relevant. You want to?
What's that?
You want to talk about Antonio Brown throwing a hissy fit?
Yeah, I do. I do want to talk about Antonio Brown throwing a hissy fit.
You're welcome.
Because he was throwing a hissy fit because he wasn't targeted during a play where he was wide the fuck open, but pretty much Big Ben had already committed to one receiver and then threw the ball, and Antonio Brown, obviously disgruntled on the field, then proceeds to go to the sideline and flip a Gatorade cooler down the sideline.
What is he, a baseball player?
And then one of the coaches comes up to either console him or tell him to calm the fuck down, and grabs him by his shoulder pad, and he turns around and beats his hand off of him and storms off raising hell.
You're not my real dad.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that blends pretty well into what we can talk about when it comes to the Steelers this week. Was Ben Roethlisberger does not look good right now. He looks so not good that I have officially benched him on my fantasy team for Deshaun Watson.
Wow. So
there's that.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is the clock running out on Big Ben?
According to him, it may be. Well, he was even quoted to say after the game,
it feels like this is
maybe I don't.
It feels like this is the coin flip season of either I absolutely nailed it at the beginning of the season, or I'm totally fucking wrong.
Yeah, well, he wasn't pressured a whole lot, but a lot was put on his shoulders when it comes to. Well, let me put it into perspective for you. Okay, he threw 5 interceptions to 0 touchdowns.
I'm sorry, you said he was playing for Pittsburgh, not Cleveland.
No, he was playing for Pittsburgh. The same team that won a bunch of Super Bowls, and this guy being part of said team and him being an MVP caliber kind of dude. Two of those picks turned into pick sixes.
Jesus Christ.
The other 3 obviously were not, but 5 interceptions, 2 of them being pick sixes, still kind of a big deal. He had so much to do with them losing the game. He had so much more to do with them losing the game than it was the Jaguars winning it. Blake Bortles was 8 for 14 for 95 yards and an interception.
Wait, hold on. How do you have one quarterback who's 8 for 14 and the other quarterback is 33 for 55?
Because
how do these numbers work? I count things for a living, and these numbers don't make any goddamn sense.
Because Jacksonville never actually had to be on offense to win the game. They only scored 2 offensive touchdowns, and one of them was on a 90-yard scamper from Leonard Fournette.
Jesus Christ.
Where he literally shot the gap and then outrun everyone. There was literally, besides that one run and Leonard Fournette having, besides that, a relatively decent day on the ground, there was literally no need for offensive production by the Jaguars, let alone it actually existing, because Ben Roethlisberger single-handedly and literally threw them the game.
I was going to say, Roethlisberger still threw for more touchdown passes than Blake Bortles did.
True, just happened to be to the wrong jersey.
Right. Yeah.
So he said after the game, maybe I don't have it anymore. But then shortly after, he elaborated and redacted that statement. But I think it plays in pretty well to the commentary we've had earlier in the season of, is the clock ticking on Big Ben? If it's going to happen, it needs to happen soon as far as them getting back to a championship push, because they have a healthy roster and they have playmakers on that team. But if Ben Roethlisberger plays football like this... And I watched the entire game. I think only 2 of those picks were like tip drill picks. The others were just bad balls. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he was throwing the way he was and they still continued to put... like you said, he had 55 passing attempts. The fact that they were still trying to shoulder so much weight of the offense on Big Ben after he was throwing so many interceptions. Le'Veon Bell only touched the ball 15 times as far as rushing goes.
Yeah, that seems low for a game with 5 interceptions.
Right. After the third one, I think you start pounding that rock.
Yeah. Well,
let's try to keep the ball on our side of the line of scrimmage for once.
Unless at that point they were just literally trying to play catch up, and they just said, because they play at Heinz Field.
I'm just going to stop talking to you now. So after a very abhorrent showing in the passing game, and pretty much the Steelers being shut out by only Jacksonville's defense, the offense didn't even need to take the field. So there's always that.
Yeah, though Leonard Fournette did have 181, though you said 90 of those came off of a single play, so...
Yeah, 90 of that was on a single play, and it was only one of 2 of their offensive touchdowns, both done by Leonard Fournette. If you had Leonard Fournette in your fantasy team, fucking good on you.
Yeah.
All he needed was, some receiving yards in there, and he would have been 30 million points. 30 points!
Yeah. So I think, maybe we're seeing a power shift from, a lot of AFC to NFC teams at this point. If the Eagles can actually hold it together. Well, other than the Chiefs, who are still, relatively consistently good.
Sure.
The Eagles are ticking up in power. The Steelers seem to be potentially on a downward trend.
The other big names you normally see in the AFC that are dominating their schedules, they're not doing that, besides, Kansas City. But Kansas City is kind of operating a little over projection right now. Mm-hmm. I expected them to be one of the better, if not the best teams in the AFC. I did not expect them to be undefeated 6 weeks in.
Yeah.
The trending data seems to indicate that there is slightly a power shift going to the NFC. But, like we talked about previously, some of these NFC teams that are 4-1, have they played a game yet?
Right, right. Or have they played more than one game against the team that they lost to? But yeah,
sure.
And again, for the AFC side, I'll go back to the Patriots one more time, which is they lost to the Chiefs, they lost to the Panthers, and all I was hearing in the offseason was, well, the Patriots have better Buffalo players than Buffalo does. It's like, yeah, all right, you got Mike Gillislee. You also got the cancer that Buffalo needed to exercise anyways. So how's that going? Is he getting called out in headlines as one of these people who's supposed to be part of this incredible defense that's like 32nd in the league pretty much? Huh? Is he?
Possibly.
I can't wait for week, God, what is it, 12? The first time we play the fucking Patriots?
Yeah, and then you can really put that defense through the paces.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, and that's the thing is, I think that'll be one of the big tests is, basically the number 1 scoring offense versus the number 1 scoring defense is gonna be an interesting game, assuming, we get some of our players back and healthy, and maybe we figure something out on offense.
Sure. Maybe by then you're starting Nathan Peterman. Maybe.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, from what you've seen out of the Browns and what I've seen out of the Bills, who do you think you need to target in the draft at this point, 5 weeks in? Or at least what position?
That's a really good question. If I had to base it off of whether or not Kevin Hogan is able to carry the production he had last week, I think we need to go after a running back or dip back in. Running back, secondary, and wide receivers. Pretty much the same thing that I said at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
Sorry,
go on.
With the addition of a running back, because obviously I had Isaiah Coel to be a little bit more productive than he has been. Honestly, I feel like Duke Johnson needs to be our feature back at this point, but they keep running it with Crowell, and he keeps having decent 60 to 80 yard games. So as long as he keeps doing that, I don't think anything's going to happen to him. But I think targeting a crazy explosive running back, like let's get our own Leonard Fournette. I want one of them. But also we need to bolster the receivers, and we need a secondary. Our secondary is still squishy. We have decent safeties, no corners, and a good front seven. I mean, by good front seven, I mean statistically we have one of the best front sevens in the NFL right now. That is based off whether or not Kevin Hogan produces. I think we've finally reached an impasse unless we see some kind of breakout manifestation of what everyone thinks DeShone Kizer can really be. I think it's time we bite the bullet and go number one for a quarterback again. We haven't done it in 2 seasons as far as doing a high draft pick on a quarterback, but this time we have pieces in place for that quarterback to be successful. Usually when we draft a quarterback, it's when we have a spongy offensive line, no receivers, no running back to take the weight off of them. This time we have one of the better offensive lines in the league. We have a shutdown front seven. We can work on the secondary. So the defense is going to keep teams out in the field, give the quarterback some rest, but they're also not going to yield points. We have a running back that's decent enough to where you can lean a significant amount of the offensive load on them. We have receivers that are at least making plays. We're getting the ball down the field through the air. So why not try to plug in a blue-chip quarterback in that position and see if they'll thrive, such as what Deshaun Watson's been doing and what I really project Mitch Trubisky will be doing at least in a few weeks.
Okay.
So of the 2 scenarios, that's how I would see that going.
And I'm in a similar mind of if we're going to draft another quarterback at this point, because I think the Bills have drafted at least a quarterback like every year for the last, I can't even think of how long, which seems like a real good way to just like waste a mid-round or late-round draft pick for the most part if you're doing it year in and year out. I could see if somebody crops up, like the Bills have 2 number 1s, the Bills have 2 number 2s, the Bills have 2 number 3s. Like we have the ability to get some draft picks and make something of it. So I would say at this point it's time to either go for a quarterback, which I don't think is the way to go, but if we're going to do it, I think we would need something who's not just like somebody who's going to be impressive, but we need like Andrew Luck if we're going to try and trade up for something like that. We need the next one of those, and I don't think we've got one of those on the horizon as far as I know. But I think it's very clear we need some wide receiver help at this point. Some young tight end help wouldn't hurt. So basically just someone in the receiving category, primarily probably a wide receiver, hopefully somebody tall and fast who's actually got a pair of hands on them. I think we're pretty solid at running back, but it's wide receiver, offensive line, and I still think cornerback because I think we bled ourselves really hard. Like, I think we basically got rid of our top 3 corners this year because, we lost Stephon Gilmore, who is, but, is still at least a threat. He demands respect for some reason from quarterbacks to not just get thrown at all the time.
Right.
Ronald Darby, I think, was legitimately a better corner coming into the league than Stephon Gilmore was in his second year and still is. Right. And then Kevon Seymour we cut at the beginning of the season, so he's somewhere else. And I thought he was going to blossom into a great prospect, considering he had like 4.26 speed, and his biggest issue was that he had 40/60 vision that got corrected. So
right.
The man can see
now. He can play football and see.
So we got rid of all of them, and then drafted Tre'Davious White, who at some point could progress into something, but I always thought was only like a nickel cornerback to begin with. He's not a big body dude.
He's not super fast,
and now he's supposedly our number 1 corner. And guess what?
Right.
He gets burned against AJ Green. So
yeah, he got paired up with one of the best receivers in the game and got torched.
Yeah, he got absolutely exposed. So it's
which, in all fairness, that same thing happened to our number one draft, or one of our number one draft picks, when he was paired up with AJ Green. So
True.
It happens.
But it's one of those things where it's just like
Rook's got to learn somehow.
Well, that and Tre'Davious White has been playing great on like slants and crossing patterns and that kind of stuff, where he can turn his hips at medium speeds and keep up with body movement. If you're just gonna run on this kid, you're gonna beat him, and that's why the Bills play safeties 25 yards deep.
Right, to give that extra layer of protection. Yeah. Soft zones will get beat; they'll get exposed.
Yeah. So, wide receiver, O-line, cornerback, tight end. Because we still got to shore up the right side of that offensive line, if nothing else.
Sure.
That and the last couple of years, between the end of the Rex era and the beginning, actually, I think it was the last. Let me try that again. The end of the Rex era and then going into this year kind of burnt us a little bit because, actually, no, was it 2 years ago? God, it was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Rex had the year where he drafted Shaq Lawson. No, that was last year. Let me try this one more time.
Okay.
Rex's last year, he turned around and spent our top 3 picks on defensive players, which were Shaq Lawson, who turned around and had a shoulder injury and was out for the first 7 weeks. And we should have known that was a red flag because he wouldn't do bench reps at the combine. But Rex was so in love with him because he played at Clemson with Rex's son. So he had a bunch of time to see this kid. Granted, Shaq has turned around and produced now. Then our second round pick was Reggie Ragland, who never saw a regular season game with the Bills and is now already traded off the team.
Jeez.
And Adolphus Washington, who some people don't super love. I think he's decent at the very least, and I think he's got a spin move. And with Kyle Williams getting up there in age, I don't think there's any threat of us losing him anytime soon. But then we turned around and drafted Tre'Davious White with our number 1 overall this year. Then we got Zay Jones, who hasn't produced. Deion Dawkins, who's supposed to be playing on the right side as a tackle, but is playing on the left side in place of Cordy Glenn. So that's hurt us because he's a rookie. And then we spent a 5th round and a 6th round on 2 linebackers and a different 5th round on Nathan Peterman. We didn't have a draft pick in the 3rd or 4th round, so we went 1, 2, 2, 5, 5, 6. So
sure.
I think it's time to turn around and start, boosting our offense again a little bit because we've gone defensive heavy and they're either underperforming or not on the team anymore at this point.
So now that we've talked about the Bills, then stop talking about the Bills and now talked about the Bills again.
It's a Bills Browns sandwich. We start with the Bills, which are like the bread, they're the solid base you need, and then the meat of the Browns, and then we have like all the condiments and accessories in the middle, and then we go back for a little bit more meat on the bottom with the Browns, and then we finish out with the Bills. And now we get to talk about the fancy plastic spear in the top of it.
Touchdown dances.
They're getting
good, dude.
They're getting good. They rounded a corner, I think.
Yeah, the Vikings Duck Goose game. I was bawling. It was hilarious.
Yeah, the Vikings play Duck Goose. The Eagles.
The Duck Goose games the Vikings played, though. It convinced me that I don't think they understand the rules of Duck Goose, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because when the player came around and goosed one of them, 4 dudes jumped up and started chasing this guy, and it's like, hold on, no. There's no gang violence in Duck Goose, okay? It's a one-on-one.
Well, listen, they're football players. They're not Duck Goose professionals, so you got to give them a little bit of leeway.
Well, it also showed with the Eagles' batting form that they're also not baseball players.
Yeah,
but
I'm pretty sure.
Also a funny one.
I'm pretty sure baseball doesn't have 6 different catchers. Last I checked.
Yeah. But
God damn it, Nelson Aguilar.
Oh man, dude! Not only did he deserve a celebration after the play he made, with the juke of doom. Like I don't think not only did he break this dude's ankles, he shook him out of his cleats. Mm-hmm. and then turning and doing the trust fall. Like what made the trust fall even better though is it's not that he trust falled into the end zone, is that's how he broke the plane.
Yep.
With the ball,
yeah, that
was the trust fall. He stopped at the half-yard line and trust falled across the goal line, and that's how he broke the plane. He scored a touchdown with a trust fall.
I think his feet were kind of on the line, but yeah.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes.
he stopped, and that was his fall into the end zone, and that was the point where I scratched my head for a second, and I was like, okay, no, I'm totally into this, which I guess kind of like slightly undermines my Von Miller point a little bit, but my other thing was like, I don't know, like, is he in the end zone already? Could he get called for taunting for that, or is that an end zone celebration? Because I mean, it's a little bit of a taunt.
Just a wee
and
bit.
By a little bit, I mean that's a lot of bit of a taunt.
Yeah, but it was a good one. It was definitely a good one.
Yeah.
And Nelson Aguilar, the play that it occurred on was pretty much perfect for it.
Maybe
because he was 1-on-1 open space, broke his ankles, and trust falled into the end zone. Like, what more could you ask for out of a league that just started allowing players to be a little more expressive in the end zone?
That's true. It was a good look, and it was an incredibly impressive play with a very fun end.
I'm glad it was portrayed by the media as like a trust fall and not him turning around and taunting, because it obviously was. He turned around and held his arms out to his side and fell backwards.
Right.
But I'm glad it was portrayed that way and not the way that one could have interpreted it as, which was, turning around and taunting the corner or the safety that he beat. I can't remember which. But it's stuff like that coupled with the duck duck goose and stuff like that. I feel like we're really players are starting to come into their own. The biggest thing that I like about celebrations is the fact that, especially these choreographed ones, there's already a drive to get into the end zone.
Oh yeah.
But you don't think these players are sitting there going, man, I can't wait until I'm going to try hard to score because I can't wait till we can bust out such and such celebration or such and such dance, Like the players are out there having fun with it, which means it's going to entice them to play the game. Mm-hmm. And get into the end zone a little bit more aggressively so they can, go out there and have fun and play the game.
I think the other thing that is important to note that I've appreciated so far is nobody has done any yeah, we just scored this touchdown. Look at our elaborate thing. We're losing 7-42.
Yeah, people that have scored and done a celebration, they're either winning the game or that is it's a close game and that was an important touchdown or something. There's impact to it. There's meaning to it.
Like the Duck Duck Goose was not them winning the game because they won it at the end with a field goal, but I think that was the tying touchdown late.
Right.
And Nelson Aguilar just broke the hell out of that dude. That's one of the few things where not hugely choreographed, but they were winning already, so...
Sure. I think the only other frame where it would be acceptable is if you are, destroying the team you're playing. Why not throw a little celebration at the end to really, drive the point home that, hey, we're kind of kicking your ass.
Yeah.
So we're gonna play baseball in the end zone, and if you want us to stop, keep us out of the end zone. It kind of harkens back to the dab, Mm-hmm. When Cam Newton was doing his celebrations in the end zone, people were getting upset about it. They were straight up pissed, and his response was, "If you want me to stop, keep me out of the end zone." This was his MVP campaign in 2015, mm-hmm. and he was right. He was absolutely right. He was dominating the NFL at the quarterback position, and he was enjoying himself while playing the game. If you want him to stop him.
Yep. And I've still thought of the one end zone celebration that I absolutely want to see, bar none. But it requires bringing Terrell Owens back into the league. I want him to score a touchdown and then have 5 of his teammates get into the end zone and form a star with their arms or legs so that he can just plant the ball in the middle of it.
Can we call him? Can we make this happen?
I mean,
I know a few teams in the NFL that could really use a wide receiver right now.
Yeah, I can think of one. It was the last team he played for. Bring that man back. Yeah. If only so that he can cry about Tyrod Taylor being his quarterback.
Which would most definitely happen.
Yeah. Oh God. Shit. Now I thought of the other thing I want, which is T.O. in the broadcast booth with Tony Romo just being like, that's my play-by-play guy.
Oh man, can we call him? Is like we need. All right, obviously we need to get a hold of T.O.'s number.
I don't have that many phone numbers. I mean, I'll get back to you if that suddenly changes, but
Okay.
all right. Well, with that, I think this has been the Fourth and Wrong podcast for this week. Say goodbye, Keith.
Goodbye, Keith. But there's only 2 times where we saw genuine penetration. Snark. Christ. Besides the 2...
I'm 5.
God damn it.